Today we're going to be doing a tutorial on how to change a garage door torsion spring. So I already took down the non-broken side, and then over here we still have a broken spring up here. These springs can be extremely dangerous, so if you do not have any experience, I would recommend just hiring a professional to get it done. When replacing the springs, you'll notice that the cones are color-coded. Typically, you want the red side on the left side, and you want the black side on the right side. So I'll show you in a second what I mean. Not something I would recommend doing by yourself, especially on a spring this big, weighs about 200 pounds. If you do plan on changing something this size, I would recommend using 2 people. In preparation of doing springs like this that has a coupler, I did remove the J-arm and the straight bar so you can have a little bit more space. Dealing with springs this big, the only way to get them off is to pull it to the center. And what you want to do is you want to make sure you put a vice grip at the end of the torsion tube. So when you pull the spring off, it doesn't pull the whole tube out. Like that. So if I were to pull this way, it's not going to go anywhere because the vice grip is stopping it from moving. Earlier when I mentioned that the springs are color coded, if you notice right here, it's black around the cone. And then that means it's for the right side. And if it was red around the cone, you would put it on the left side. When a spring is hollow on the inside, what it needs is a center bracket, or a center bearing rather. This ensures that when the spring is rotating, it's not cutting through the tube. So you need to have this if it doesn't come with one already attached to it. And by that, I mean the center bracket. This little device, it's a coupler. This is used when you have really thick steel torsion tubes and they're in 2 separate pieces. This is to connect both separate pieces into one long piece. So at this point, you have both of your new springs on, you have your center bearings on, and you have your coupler on. Well, what you want to do is you want to connect the springs themselves to the center bracket. And you do it one by one and take as much time as you need because the springs are extremely heavy in this case. So in this case, we can fit a drill in this space, but sometimes it's too tight in here. What you'll need to do is just take your 9/16 socket wrench and put it on a regular socket or a regular socket wrench. Your 9/16 bit. The left side is taken care of, so we'll just do the right side now. If you're having trouble moving this spring, you just twist it and pull at the same time. Don't fully tighten these nuts and bolts because we do need a little wiggle room. After we get the couplers lined up perfectly and we get the bolts in, then you can tighten it all the way on both sides. Here you have the torsion springs connected to the center bracket. What needs to happen is each side of the door, it has cables on it. We need to put tension in the cables, and the only way you can do that is manually pull the torsion tube towards you and make sure the cable is wrapping around the groove on the outside. Once the cable is in its groove, you're going to take your vice grip and hold on to the tube. You're going to pull it towards you and then press your vice grips against the wall like this. Now the cable has tension in it. We have to do this on both sides. Loose cable, go ahead and put it in the groove of the drum. You want to put tension in it. You can use the vice grips to help you pull the cable towards you, push the vice grip against the wall, and now your cable has tension in it, okay? You want it to be as tight as possible. So once you have tension in both cables on the left and the right side, what we're gonna need to do is we're gonna put the coupler together. Remember I said earlier that the coupler is used to put two separate tubes into one. So you'll need a bolt with a washer on it. You'll need two washers for the other side of the bolt, and then one of these. Bolt with the washer on it. You can put it either each way, but it has to go into both couplers, okay? And you want these to be as lined up as possible, or as much as you can. And then you put the other washers on. And then you put the nut on. You don't fully tighten it until you get all of them on. There's no way to get my drill in here because there's not enough space. So what I like to do is just take my 9/16 socket and put it on the actual wrench. You take a number 14 millimeter wrench and you hold it on the other side. This way you can tighten it. Okay, at this point you could take your 7/16 socket and make sure that the bolts on the coupler on the outside are connected on the actual torsion tube. Once you fill the tube, all you need is really two tight turns. So 1 and 2. Now go ahead and make sure that you tighten up the springs to the center bracket. It's important to leave the vice grips on the torsion tube until you wind the springs up. Now this door is 9 feet. That means each spring has to be rotated 9 full turns. But you'll notice in a second that you can only turn the spring a quarter at a time. So you would multiply the height of the door times 4. So that will give you 1 rotation. We'll need to turn these springs at least 36 times each. This is an extremely strong spring. It requires commercial winding bars. But just to save myself the time, I'm going to use residential bars, which are, I don't know, 12 inches or something. I'm going to turn the spring as many times as I can with the small bars, and then I'll switch over when it gets too strong to the commercial bars. So right around the 15th turn, it's getting a little bit too strong. So once you switch over to the commercial winding bars, it's going to be a little tedious at this point, because honestly, the only way you're going to rotate a spring this size when this strong is you got to do it 1 quarter rotation at a time. So this will be our 16th turn, and it's not as, see, it's a lot easier with the longer winding bar. So Now I'm keeping track of count in my head, but the old-fashioned way to do it is you could take a piece of chalk and you can draw a line all the way across from here. And every time you see a line on the rotation of the spring, that tells you that's how many times it's been rotated. So for instance, this means 1, this means 2, this means 3, and the rest of the spring doesn't have it. But I didn't draw a chalk line, and I lost my count. Once you get it to the designated amount of turns, just go ahead and tighten these up. Once the spring is tightened, use your other winding bar, push up a little bit to pull the spring out. And you'll notice that both of the vice grips either side, they came off of the wall. Okay, so at this point you can take the vice grips off because the spring is putting tension in the cables. So we're done with this side, we just have to do this side. At this point, you can take your vice grips off because we have one spring wound up and it has tension in the cables. So just as a precautionary thing you should do, when working with a door this size and springs this strong, I would take your vice grips that you're not using anymore and place them on the insides of the tracks. So if I were to wind up the spring and it had too much tension in it, the door is going to try to fling up, but this will prevent it from going up, okay? Even if you have 10 years experience or if you're just a beginner, you should put these in the tracks. Something you should never do is stand directly in front of the spring that you're winding. I have confidence in myself. I've been doing this for years, especially if you're a novice. Don't stand in front of the spring when you wind it. So on the 18th turn, it got a little bit too strong. So I'm just switching to the commercial winding bars, so it's a little easier. If your spring is not perfectly straight and it's starting to bow, all you got to do is give it a little smack. And it straightens it out, okay? You want the spring to be straight. We're only at 30 turns, but I just want to see, I want to test the weight of the door right now. So we're going to tighten it up. If we need more tension, we can add tension later, but just to be safe. When the radius of a spring is this big, it doesn't always go by the height of the door. So right now, this side has about 34 turns. This side has about 30 turns, and we're going to test it. And then if we need to add more tension later, we can do that. Right now, the door wants to fling up, hence the reason that I put vice grips on both sides. It's a little too strong, so what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to take tension out of each spring. This one has 30, so we're going to take about 4 turns out of that spring to make it even. Okay, so upon completion of the rotation of springs on both sides, you're going to need to test the balance of the door. We'll take our safety vice grip off, and you'll notice that the door is not flinging up off the ground. So you want it to be like that. You want it to be in its resting position, leveled on the ground. Now, when you lift the door up, you want to put it in the middle. If it doesn't go down or it doesn't go up, that means the door is perfectly balanced. So only thing left to do is test it with the opener. Okay, so once you've tested the balance of the door, you will need to re-engage the trolley mechanism. So typically for most trolleys, all you got to do is pull the red cord down and pull it backwards, okay? If you wanted to use the door on manual, you would pull it down and pull it out towards you. You'll notice that there will be a little space over here on the middle part. So right now we need to re-engage it like that. That's re-engage, that's disengage. Re-engage, disengage. When we push the button, the trolley will start moving and it will attach back in to the mechanism. Okay, so if you notice that this specific door is not going to the top of the frame, customer's preference. I mean, if you want the door to go a little higher, if you want it to go, you know, fully up towards the frame, all you have to do is mess with the limits on the inside of the opener. That's nothing you can do with the wall button or the sensors or the springs. It has to do with the opener mounted on the ceiling, or in some cases, it'll be a jack shaft opener mounted on a torsion tube. So we're going to make this go just a little bit higher. This vehicle right here looks about 7 feet tall. I know this is a 9-foot opening, but just in case they want something a little taller than this vehicle, or if they want to put a roof rack on, they'll have enough clearance space. So once again, guys, I'm Brandon with BH Garage. That was a quick tutorial on how to change a pair of commercial torsion springs. If you don't have any confidence, just hire, you know, a technician or someone who has a lot of experience, especially on a door this size. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. If you have any questions, post them in the comments. Have a good day.